Hi, everyone. I want to take a minute to welcome you all to the first Lettuce Solo Summit. I'm Gabrielle Tenaglia. I'm Lettuce's head of marketing and an S Corp owner. At Lettuce, we are on a mission to help solopreneurs like you keep more of what they earn by automating your taxes and accounting. But we're here for more than just tax savings. We want to help your solo business grow and thrive so you get all the advantages of running your own business. For the next 2 days, we're excited to bring together ambitious solopreneurs and industry innovators to uncover what truly drives success. We've gathered an extraordinary group of speakers who understand exactly what it takes to build and scale a successful solo business, and we're thrilled to have you join us. As you attend sessions today, please ask questions, comment in the chat. We want to hear from you. Connect with each other using your LinkedIn profiles, and check the handouts tab in each session for offers from our speakers and from Lettuce. To kick off our summit today, we have a speaker who knows how to help small companies make a big impact. I have been lucky to learn for the work she does as Director of Market Engagement at LinkedIn's B2B Institute. She's going to tell us today how you can apply the marketing principles that help global brands grow, but without the big budgets and large teams. Through her work at Google, IBM, and LinkedIn, she's developed practical strategies that help independent professionals command attention in their markets. Her work and influence extends beyond marketing. She serves as president of LinkedIn's Black Inclusion Group and co-founded Transform Her, LinkedIn's premier event for women of color. Today, she'll show us how to build remarkable brands for our own solo businesses. She is also going to give away 2 LinkedIn premium accounts during her session, so be sure to stick around. Please welcome our opening keynote speaker, Heath.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome, Gabrielle. And hello, everyone. So let me just say a little bit more about myself and the B2B Institute, and then so excited to get the participation in the chat. I'm so serious when I talk about community. So please feel free to connect with each other and with me. I would be remiss if I didn't say that because I work for LinkedIn. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. But such a pleasure to be here. I work at LinkedIn's B2B Institute. We're focused on building famous brands. And so how do we do that? We collaborate with academic and industry experts. And really the mission is just to make sure we can cultivate household brands. And our research indicates that brand building is actually one of the prime opportunities to get from small to big. So you're in the absolute right place. This is small brand, big impact. I'm going to get these slides up here for everyone to see. But really, this is the place for you to understand the marketing science of how small brands grow. So we're going to do science today. I'm not just going to tell you, I'm actually going to show you why I'm saying what I'm saying today. And we're going to be kind of ambitious. We're going to try to get a lot covered. But as Gabrielle said, if you have any thoughts, feelings, emotions about what I'm sharing, I definitely want to hear from you in the chat. If anything needs clarifying, please ask a question or drop it in the chat. I'm going to try to keep an eye on there. I've got like a command center situation. So I'll do my best to cover it immediately or at the end where we can squeeze in some Q&A, or we can just stay connected and do it that way. All right, let's get into the content for today. And we're going to start with science, as I said, because almost everyone knows that there are laws of physics that govern our universe. So Newton here on the slide found that there are laws in motion. He said an object at rest stays at rest. Another thing is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so what we may not have known is that there actually are laws of marketing. And these laws of marketing explain how brands grow, whether you're a B2C entrepreneur or B2B. And so these things reveal how advertising works, and they challenge some of the notions that we've been taught. And so we work a lot with institutions like, for example, the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute, and they've got these big principles that have really revolutionized how marketing happens. They shape strategies for big businesses. However, if you study marketing at any university, what they won't be talking about oftentimes is some of these fundamental laws. Maybe that's changed, but during my time, I didn't encounter that. So we're going to cover those things today. That's what we're going to talk about today. All right. So I think everyone loves a good underdog story. So I'm on this slide, some of the movies you may have seen. everything from Rocky to Karate Kid to Bend It Like Beckham, all of these different things. I think these tales really celebrate tenacity, hard work, and also clever strategy over brute force. So let me underscore that, because that's what you need to be successful as a small business. I think small businesses are the ultimate underdogs, and there are a lot of inspiring marketing strategies coming from small businesses. So there's a challenge of things that we need to encounter as businesses. So there's no business doesn't encounter any of these things you're seeing on this slide, whether it's cash flow being challenging, limited resources, a lack of brand awareness. All businesses face these types of challenges. The distinction is this: small brands are starting on the first base, while big brands are starting on the third base. So the question is really, how do you start to close this gap? Part of it is you need to know what game you're playing, because advertising is a competitive sport, and you've got your small brands competing directly with industry giants. We're all trying to get attention and market share. What I want to underscore here is what you're seeing at the bottom of this slide, which is that memory is the game we're playing. Marketers are in the memory business. And if you forget everything else, just remember this one point: the brand that's remembered is the brand that's bought. So let's understand why this is the case. Let me know in the chat if anyone here has seen The Bachelor. Do we have anybody from Bachelor Nation perhaps here watching today? So in the show The Bachelor, there's a situation called the first impression rose. And whoever gets this first impression rose, you believe it or not, usually they're going to end up in the final four on the show. So there's been 50 seasons of The Bachelor, and usually one of the folks that gets that first impression rose makes it to the finale. And there's actually marketing science behind this. And it's because we humans naturally favor early information when making decisions. It's actually a form of bias called the availability heuristic. And so maybe you've seen the show on Saturday Night Live, where they kind of make fun of The Bachelor a little bit. They're like, can I steal him for a second? So that works for TV drama, but in business, it's usually too late if you're in that situation. By then, the potential customers have already picked their shortlist. So we don't want to be that last minute scramble. Instead, we want to win that first impression rose. It's actually kind of wild, right? Because out of 23 contestants who got that first rose, if you look at the stats here, over half of those people made it to the top four. And those final four recipients are on the show twice as long as other contestants. So kind of wild, you know. And Patrick, I hear you on that one. This is very interesting information. It's like connecting the real world to marketing. It's not just luck. It's the power of a strong first impression. And guess what? The same principle applies to your business. So we want to think about how we're making that memorable first impression. We don't want to be just another option. We want to be the front runner here for this in this competition. So just to underscore this a bit more, speaking of front runners, here's what's really happening when people are making buying decisions. So typically people search the first search engine, which is the search engine in their mind when they're making a decision. And over 86% of those people are starting with a short list. On that short list are typically just 3 brands, right? And then when they are choosing, 92% of those people just go ahead and choose a brand from that day one list. So if we're not on that day one list, we're probably not even in the game. That real competition for selection is actually happening before the purchase decision. So I'm going to break this down a little bit. This is from a mental model. We're obsessed with mental models at the B2B Institute. This one is called the 95-5 rule. And if you're in B2C, it's actually it could be the 80-20 rule. It varies based on the space you're playing in. But what it says is that 95% or 80% of your potential buyers are not in buying mode at any given time. So what we need to think about, because we technically tend to be focused on that 5% or that 20% in our marketing, we're just capturing the people who are looking for us right now. But what we need to be thinking about is how do we build our brand in the quiet moments before the customer actually needs you? Because we don't want to wait till they're ready for a purchase. If we do that, we're already too late. So we're trying to become a part of the story long before they're ready to write the check. That 5% or that 20% is a matter of lead generation or demand capture. That future 80 to 95% is a matter of memory generation, because marketers are actually in the memory business. So that's what we're needing to do, is how do we get on that day one list? How do we speak to that 80, 95% that we can reach? All right, so what you're looking at here on this slide is the long-term play. I know not everyone here is looking to have like the biggest business ever on the planet, but some people may have that aspiration. But anywhere in between, this is just talking about the journey from a startup to scale up, right? And here's what's fascinating: most businesses wait too long to build their brand. They're focusing only on today's buyer, which is ignoring the future buyers that I talk about here. And so here's the painful part to absorb. If we're only talking at that 5%, 20%, our costs will keep climbing, and we're needing to spend more and more to reach fewer and fewer customers. So when you start to invest in building your brand early, this is what generates the momentum effect. Your future marketing will cost less. Your reach grows naturally, and you're not constantly chasing your next customer. This doesn't happen overnight. Serena Williams didn't just step on the court and start winning Grand Slams. We actually have to build that muscle in advance, right? And believe it or not, it's not so much. There's a fallacy out there called product-led growth. This idea that if you just build the best thing, that's what's going to get you over the line. It's not just that. We need to be remembered. People need to understand we exist. That is the path to growth, and I'm going to show you why. So the choice is us to take now. Build your brand now. You can start to bend that cost curve down. And I like to say, make choices today that your future self will thank you for. So how do we do this? Now that we understand that memory is the name of the game, what can we do? These are the laws of marketing that apply to all brands, but many small brands may not know them. You will, though, after we finish today. And that's your opportunity. We'll know the rules of the game so you can play them better than your competition. Right? So we're going to start with the first law of marketing to understand. And yes, this session is being recorded, and you can get the slides. I have them in the, I believe, the handout section for you to download. So I know if some of you are taking notes, you will get these slides as well. But yes, so the laws of marketing apply to all brands, but many small brands may not know them. That's where we're going to go today. So that with the first law, Double Jeopardy Law, we look at the relationship between the size of the brand and the loyalty of customers. The common belief comes from thinking that creating an exceptional product is what keeps people loyal. That's important, but it's not enough. What this law shows is that brands grow by acquiring new customers, not just by retaining existing ones. So take it from Professor Ehrenberg-Bass here, from the Ehrenberg-Bass Institute, Professor Ehrenberg rather. And he says that penetration drives all important buyer behavior. There's a lot of things you can do that affect buyer behavior, but 999 of them usually don't matter. The main one is penetration, which means reach. That's what we need to do. So take a look. This is the science here. I'm going to prove to you why this is the case. This is a list of CRM companies. Notice something interesting. Take a look at this. The big three, Adobe, Salesforce, and Microsoft, they're not just bigger, they're stickier. Because you look at the penetration rate, these are the biggest brands, highest penetration, but they also have the highest retention rate. Their customers stay longer. So this is the brutal truth for small brands and why we call it the Double Jeopardy Law. You just don't have fewer customers. Those customers are less likely to stick around. If you look at Monday.com and Freshworks, for example, you'll notice lower penetration, lower retention. And it makes sense Because when more people know your brand, more people trust it. When more people trust it, more people stay. So it's a virtuous cycle for big brands, but it presents a challenge for smaller brands. So big brands are benefiting from that higher recognition. And so here's the opportunity. If we start building brand early, we can break this cycle before it breaks our business. So how do we do this? That's the $1 million question. And so let me pose this question for you. Would you rather reach 1 million people once or 500,000 people twice? And I think from this chart, you can kind of see the answer to that question. If you look at this curve, you'll notice that the biggest impact happens at the first exposure. That's that big change moment. After that, you're fighting for smaller and smaller gains. This is diminishing returns. So what science is telling us is that the smart money's on reach. When we have a choice, we want to get in front of more people, the more people that we can get in front of memorably rather than the same people repeatedly. Because if you think about that second, third, fourth touch, they're not giving you the same bang for your buck. This isn't just theory. It's been proven over and over again since 1992. That first impression is really your power play. And to your point here, Peter, yes, we want to reach the right audience. We want relevant reach. You want to reach as big an audience as you can for the budget that you have. So yes, it does matter, but what we're looking for is relevant reach. So think about it as like the hurdles your brand needs to clear, rather. Okay, hold on, let me go back one slide. The hurdles your brand needs to clear. You can't jump the second hurdle if you never reach the first one. So reach is the first one. If they never see you, they can't pay attention. If they don't pay attention, they won't remember you. And if you don't remember you, well, you're not making that day one list I talked about early. So every growth journey starts with reach. We must reach them. Without that, even if you have the best product or the most clever marketing, it doesn't matter. So how do we start to do this in the absence of a big budget? So where we can start out with is our own voice and our own organic platform. And so I'm going to talk about LinkedIn specifically, but to the point Peter was making before, it really depends on where your audience is. So choose your platform and invest in the platforms where your audience is. Okay. And I see in the chat, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name, Hormazad. Yes, you're absolutely right. This is counterintuitive to traditional what marketing says. But I'm showing you in the science why this is the case with the diminishing returns and how there's a correlation between penetration and retention. So I'm showing you through the science. And it's crazy to me that we're not talking about this more in like B school or any other school. This is why we exist, to make sure that everyone understands this. And so your executive brand is an asset. So breaking this down into 3 simple stages for LinkedIn and building your brand. So learning to move in the digital space. So first, you're crawling. You're setting up your foundation. Basic profile, starting to engage, 1 post a week, getting comfortable, then walking, building consistency, joining communities, engaging. You're maybe starting to set up your company page. You're starting to write articles. You're starting to build. And then finally, you're running. So this is where you're leading. Now you're shooting regular video content. You're expanding your reach. You're consistently posting. You're starting to run advertising on various platforms. You're not just participating, you're driving conversations here as well. Catherine, can you please pop that question into the Q&A, and I can talk a little bit more specifically to LinkedIn strategy at the end. So please pop it there and I'll make sure I get to that question. This is the other thing to keep in mind. If you might be a solopreneur, but some of you might also have a small team. And this is a powerful secret. Even if you have a small team, your team's combined network can actually be 12 times bigger than your company's following. So think about that. If you and your employees are collectively posting, you're going to get 12 times the reach than just your branded account. So if you come up with that type of strategy, it's helpful, but it's not just about those numbers, because people actually trust individuals more than they trust companies. You're going to get that outsized impact where your team is sharing those authentic experiences, carrying more weight for you as well. So those are 2 ways to achieve reach. Happy to share more. There's much more you can do as a small business. Remember, you're shooting for reach because there's one strategy to grow, according to Professor Jenny Romaniak, and that's primarily from new customer acquisition, which expands the size of your base. So there's that correlation between reach and growth that we need to hit here. So to close out this particular law, you grow by acquiring new customers, but you must reach them in order to make that possible. You're maximizing your reach to open up the potential opportunity for future sales. You're shooting your shot as many times as possible when you focus on reach. Okay, so that brings us to our second law, and this law is called the law of duplicate purchase. So it shows us how brands compete against each other for customers based on brand size. So let's dig into what this law means a little bit more. So the myth comes from this idea that you have an amazing product and that amazing product is automatically going to attract customers. It's not the whole story. What this law shows us is that brands grow by gaining new customers, not just by relying on existing ones. Again, small businesses face a challenge because customers often use multiple brands in the same category. What do I mean by that? Not only do we compete with the biggest brands, we also are sharing customers with bigger brands. So customers often are choosing multiple brands from the same category. So that's something for us to keep in mind. And here's the science aspect of it now to show you something really fascinating about how customers actually behave. So again, we're taking a look at this category. Look at Amazon here. They're the industry giant. You'd think they'd own their entire market. No, but they don't. Here's the reality. 54% of their customers, if you look at that highlighted area, also use Google. 23% also use Oracle, and even the smaller players get a piece of the action. There's no big company that has a monopoly on customer loyalty. This is actually good news for you. I'm a glass half full type of person because even the giants can't keep their customers exclusively for themselves. What does this mean for you? There's always room at the table. But we don't just need to beat the big players. We need to be a part of that day one list we talked about earlier. No brand has an exclusive lock. Know that. We can compete with the big people. People naturally pay attention to big brands. That's human nature. But this is the opportunity. Instead of trying to convince everyone you're totally different, what we want to do is focus on being consistently memorable. Because when people recognize your brand, they're more likely to trust it. And that's how you get on day one list. We're not going to outspend the giants. Instead, we want to focus on building recognition over time. So here's what this means for you. Number one, you have to steal customers from the category leaders. Number two, the customers you do have, you want to defend them from the category leaders. And three, we have to compete and earn all new buyers coming into the category for the first time. Right? So yes, Benny, absolutely. This is so real. The competition is there and everyone is up for the taking. And guess what? Brand is how you compete. So let's talk about brand for a second here, because look at these iconic brands for a moment. Everyone knows that Netflix sound, ta-dum, you know what I'm talking about. The Tiffany blue box, the M&M characters. Each of these is instantly recognizable. But here's the interesting part. Brands often think we need to play it safe, but this is where you already know you're not going to do that. You're going to focus on standing out by being distinctive. We just need to be consistent and memorable as we build our brands. So think about how you might use some of these branding elements in your business. Small businesses can use these same things to be memorable, the same things that these big brands use. Quick quiz. What color do you think of when I say IBM? Let me know in the chat. What color do you think of when I say Spotify? What character do you think about when I say Geico? Any thoughts here? The memory. Yes, exactly. Blue, green for Spotify. Exactly. Marketers are in the memory business. The Geico gecko. I say Geico, you say gecko. But do you see how these brands are using these memory devices to trigger us to think about them? That's brand power, when a simple color or character is triggering that recognition. That's it, So exactly, IBM is big blue, right? So here's what makes ads work. And this is where, if we start to employ these devices earlier on, they're going to help your brand later. So stories that move, characters we care about, sound that sticks, emotion that resonates. Think about your favorite ads. They probably hit these marks, right? Entertain people. Overkill is underrated here. It's underrated. So let's talk about color as a brand asset. And I would love to have someone participate in the chat here. I'm also ex-IBM, by the way. A lot of IBMers in the chat here. But let's play a game. Do I have any volunteers here? Any volunteers? Maybe it's one of the IBMers that wants to play here. Can anyone raise your hand if you think you can identify which one of these looks like the most trustworthy, responsible, and loyal blue? Anyone have any idea which one might be the IBM blue? Okay, let me see who the first volunteer is here. Okay, wait. Okay, Domitila, in the chat, which one do you think is IBM blue? And you have some folks helping you in the chat here. Which one do you think it is? Let's see what you say. Anybody? Which one do you want to go with? Okay, I'm not hearing from Domitila. So in the interest of time, let's see who was the second person to raise their hand here. Okay, Andrea Williams, which one do you think? Oh, wait. Oh, no, you did respond. Sorry. B. Okay, sorry, missed that. This chat is moving. Okay. So yes, IBM is B. B for the win. Good job. Wow. This one is tough because I think it's nearly impossible to recognize who is who. So 1 is B, 2 is E, 3 is D, 4 is C, and 5 is A. So if you got that, kudos to you, because my point here is color is important, but you just don't want to use color alone, because color is not enough to trigger people's memory. I'm actually very impressed with the guesses that people had in the chat here. And so for participating, Domitila, I have a premium LinkedIn subscription to give you as a gift for participating. Okay, so thank you so much. And the question, which one is Azure? It's D. Azure Blue is just D. Fun times. Okay, so color is not enough. We need to do more than color. So think about adding a character, a sound, something else to complement the color in your investment there. You're so welcome. All right, let's move on to the next thing, because it's situations we have to think about as well. So different aspect of memory. Here's a fascinating discovery. If you learn words underwater, you remember them best when you're underwater again. Isn't that crazy? I don't know who's doing memory exercises underwater, but it's a thing, apparently. But think about what this means for your brand, because it's not just about being memorable. It's about being memorable in the right moment when your customers need you. So it's not just will they remember you, but will they remember you when it matters? Let's actually prove this point with another game I like to call the coffee game. Do I have any volunteer in the chat that wants to play the coffee game? Maybe somebody who drinks coffee as much as I do, which is like literally several times a day. Anyone want to do coffee game with me? Who wants to do coffee game? Okay, wait. I think first person to say that is Jasmine. Jasmine, okay, we're doing the coffee game, Jasmine. And maybe you can get some help from the audience here. So tell me this, Jasmine, what is the first coffee brand that comes to mind in general? So Jasmine, I'm looking for coffee. Coffee is life, indeed. Jasmine, which is the coffee brand that comes to mind for you first? Okay, so Jasmine, Dunkin'. So yeah, so lots of people are going to say Dunkin'. Some people are going to say Starbucks. But oftentimes the brand that people name is the biggest brand in the category, and that is because they're thought of in a lot of different buying situations. So Jasmine, now I'm going to ask a different question. What is the coffee brand you think about when you're walking down the street on the way to work? Let me know, and folks in the chat, help Jasmine out. What is the brand you think about when you're on the street looking for coffee on the way to work? Anything? Starbucks, that's going to be on every corner. Same. So lots of Starbucks here. So again, you see that the biggest brand in the category, they also tend to own more buying situations. Starbucks or Dunkin'. Honestly, a lot of the Pret. Now we're seeing some Dutch Brothers. Some of this is going to depend on where you live in this world. What's going to come up for you? All right, let's do a different one. When you are wrapped up in a blanket on your couch on a Sunday, what is the coffee brand that comes to mind? So Jasmine and team, help us out. You're on the couch. It's maybe a chilly day and you are enjoying a beverage. What is the brand that comes up? Pete's, some Starbucks, Nespresso, 5 o'clock, Folgers, Lavazza. Okay, so point I'm making here, do you see how the brand can shift based on the situation you're in? So like if I said you're meeting a best friend at the cafe to have a drink of coffee, the brand might change again. So it might be the best part of waking up, it could be that if you're at home, or it might be Starbucks if you're on the street. But I think this is the distinction for small businesses, because there are a lot of different buying situations that exist, which means that you can find one that works for you and start to compete there. There's not just one consideration set. There's a million different consideration sets based on the different situations that buyers find themselves in, which is so cool, which means you can think about, I want to be the brand that competes for people who want to enjoy their coffee on the couch on a Sunday. So the question is, for your brand, can we identify all of those different buying situations and then figure out how you're going to compete for that particular situation? Part of how you do that might be thinking about what are the different things that trigger your buyers to work with you. If you have a small sales team, or if you are the salesperson, start asking the question, what prompted you to have this conversation with me today? You start to learn those things, and now you can start to go after particular situations. So now you're not just competing with Starbucks, you're competing with a bunch of small different situations. So this is how you can start to build. I think this is one of the most revolutionary concepts, frankly, in marketing. So to wrap up this section, to grow, brands must compete with the biggest players, but the good news is that a David can beat a Goliath. You just need to be remembered in a focused way in a different buying situation, and have a strong brand to level the playing field. So given this, the final question we have to answer is, what types of customers should we be targeting with this? Okay, so that brings us to our third and final law, the law of buying frequencies, which is about why it's important to target all types of customers. So let's talk about what this actually means. Because the myth is that growth, again, comes from having just the most amazing product that achieves outsized customer expansion opportunities because your product is so amazing. That's the myth. The reality is that brands are mostly going to have a lot of people that buy from you occasionally, and then a few people that buy from you a lot, no matter how good your product is or how good your sales force is. So we're going to look at science again. So let me show you why what I'm saying is true. What you're looking at here is the monthly category spend for the business intelligence, cloud, and CRM categories from light to heavy spend. This is true for any brand, B2B or B2C. This is a pattern that's well known in science called the negative binomial distribution. And what it says, basically, if you look at it, is that categories have mostly light buyers and very few heavy buyers. So you look at the chart here, you can see what I'm talking about when you look at the spend along the bottom. And so it's tempting for us to focus on the big fishes, but the law of buying frequency shows us that most of our customers are going to be light buyers. They're not going to spend a ton. They're not going to be big businesses. So in order to grow, we need to evolve our businesses to attract and profitably serve all types of new customers. So I know there's some limits there, but it's about thinking about how do we enhance the flexibility of our businesses. Because if we think about our customers like a bag of Skittles, everyone wants the red ones, but you can't get more red Skittles without buying the whole bag, if you get what I'm saying there. All right. And just to make sure you understand this trend is really real, we see the same thing at the brand level. The good news is no brand is going to have a monopoly on all heavy buyers. So this is cloud. The big three have mostly buyers, light buyers on the left, and very few heavy buyers on the right. So they're winning because they're just acquiring more buyers overall. They can serve more people. That's why they're bigger brands. Okay. So Peter, translating what you're saying for a solopreneur, true. Having 1 to 2 clients might be enough for a smaller term gig or recurring contract. If you want to grow, that might be fine. And I'm definitely acknowledging that. If you want to grow, then you want to think about how you start to scale. How you start to scale is thinking about how do you add flexibility to the way you manage the customers that you start to build on, right? And so part of how you do that, and I can share more about that. That's an excellent question. Part of how you do that more profitably is to be able to command a higher price. Having a bigger margin allows you to invest that back into your business. So let me show you something powerful about pricing. What you're looking at here, this is called the value stick, and it's by Harvard professor Felix Oberholzer-Gee. And it really reveals marketing secret superpower. So, and sorry if you're hearing the siren. I am in New York, folks, so there's going to be a siren here and there. I hope you're not hearing that. But at the top, what you're seeing is customers' willingness to pay. Exactly, part of the joy of the city, Gabrielle. At the top is what your customers are willing to pay. At the bottom is your cost. The gap in between is your headroom for growth there. So here's the magic. Small branding doesn't just get you noticed. It actually increases that green area, how much your customers will pay. So it's not just about awareness. Building your brand is also about creating pricing power. And in this economy, that is pure gold, right? So that's what we want to think about. So how does marketing create pricing power? It's a 2-part value equation. So there's the functional story of whatever it is that you deliver. And that could be speed, efficiency, scalability. Everyone recognizes that. But the game-changing element of building a brand is also the emotional connection. And so that's not just fluffy. A lot of people think it's abstract. But if your brand also gives people the confidence, the peace of mind from a proven solution, a sense of accomplishment, that's harder to measure, but it's very real for people. And the crucial insight is that brand can make people feel something about your product. And that emotional connection is also what drives pricing power. And the reality is that strong brands have pricing power. All things being equal, you can grow more by selling more or by raising your prices. If you take a look at these different levers to impact your profitability, whether it's price, sales volume, fixed costs, or variable costs, all things being equal, you're going to get a bigger bang for your buck if you're able to have a higher price ultimately. So that's something to keep in mind. Brand building is playing the long game, and it's a powerful game to play, because look at what having a strong brand gets you: sustainable sales, pricing power, talent that wants to work for you because they are a fan of your brand, a competitive edge that's hard to copy, category optionality to be able to pivot into a new space if a particular category that is shrinking. So the benefits really compound over time, which is why I want you as a small business or solopreneur to start investing in these things early. So while people are chasing a sale, you're actually starting to build your advantage for tomorrow. So to take this point home here, let's wrap up and then see if we can get to a few questions from people today. The law of buying frequency says that most customers are going to be occasional buyers, few will be heavy buyers. From a marketing perspective, you want to focus on serving all customers more profitably. So the summary here, these are the laws of marketing. You now know, and I proved to you with the science there, why this is the case. To grow, we need to do these three things. We want to be a reach maximalist. Reach is the single biggest thing you can do for expansion and growth. 2, be memorable. Start to invest in things like your logo, your fonts, your characters, the sounds. You can do the same things that the big businesses are doing, but it's not just that. Think about how you can be remembered in a particular buying situation. Remember the coffee game we played. And then finally, you want to think about how do you add some flexibility into your capabilities to serve more types of customers profitably. And that is the game for all of us to play here. And that brings us to our close here. Hopefully that's been helpful. Feel free to connect with me, connect with each other. Let's see if we can get to some questions real quick. And I want to make sure we end on time. Are we able to do a question or are we out of time?
We're right at 10:40.
We're right at time. Oh,
and I want to make sure to give, our next session people time to go to their next session. Thank you so much, Ty. This has been.
Thank you so much. Send me your questions, people. Send me. I will answer on LinkedIn. Okay. Thank you.
Ty's available to us on LinkedIn. Thank you, Ty, for kicking off our solo summit. To keep the momentum going after the next 2 days, Lettuce is kicking off a solo challenge that starts on March 3rd. So keep your eye out for that. Everyone here will be invited. And next up, we're going to head into breakout sessions. So to get to your next session, I just want to give people some tips. Just head back to the agenda page and click into the session. Everything will be accessible to you there. I'm excited to see you all, and I'll be back again this afternoon when we'll hear from Lettuce CEO Ron Harpaz. Have a great first day, and thank you again, Ty. We so appreciate your bringing all your insights and knowledge.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Woo, that was awesome.
I'm so glad. I was like trying to power through. I answered a lot of questions.